Welcome back. We are in Senior AP English and we are in Hamlet Act 3. We are now continuing with our conversation between Hamlet and Ophelia. Ophelia will come to Hamlet and say, right at the end of the to be or not to be soliloquy, here, I want you to have this stuff back. You gave it to me, and I'm not interested in having it anymore because you clearly don't love me anymore. The expectation is that he's going to say back, no, you got me all wrong. I really want to go out with you some more, that kind of thing. No, that's not what he does. Instead, what he does is say, dude, I never gave you that stuff. She's like, I know that you gave me this stuff. Nobody else could have given me this stuff. And then he pauses, and we'll pick up now with where we left off yesterday. He looks at her and he says, are you honest? Now, dude, that is a fairly simple question. It's not like that's a complicated question. To which Ophelia responds, yes, I'm honest. I always tell that. No. Ophelia looks back at Hamlet and goes, huh? What? I don't understand. What? Hamlet immediately follows it up with the second question, are you fair? Now here, fair does not mean just or in the Platonist sense of the word right. Rather, fair here means beautiful. Are you beautiful? Now, it is significant when you watch the performance of Hamlet today, any performance of Hamlet today, that the actress who plays Ophelia needs to be physically beautiful. So that the question, are you fair, is self-evident. Ophelia knows she's hot. Hamlet asks her, are you fair? And she goes, yeah, of course I'm hot. Everyone knows I'm... No. Ophelia's like, huh? What do you mean? Hamlet then follows it up. Look what he says. That if you be honest and fair, your honesty should admit no discourse to your beauty. Hamlet makes an interesting observation. Beautiful women always are liars. Always are liars. By their very definition, the fact that they're hot allows them to lie, and stupid men will believe them. It seems to suggest that on the other side, Hamlet's suggesting that but ugly women, well, they have to tell the truth because that's all they've got. They got nothing else to go on. To which Ophelia will respond by saying, why can't a beautiful woman also tell the truth? Like, why can't they go together? It ought to be that honesty and beauty go together, Ophelia will say. Hamlet will say, yeah, no, I don't think so. And then he will say, I did love you once. To which Ophelia will say, indeed, my lord, you made me believe so. Now, I want to come back for a moment to the observation that I made at the very beginning of our conversations about Hamlet. That the opening line of the play is, who's there? And I want to point out that this is a play about identity. Namely, trying to answer the question, who are you? And Ophelia is in the middle of a conversation that a number of guys and girls have had over the years, where they thought they were a thing, and then all of a sudden the girl's like, who are you? What is wrong with you? The guy will say to the girl, who are you? Like, this isn't all me, this is also you, kind of thing. So we're in that moment of pretty interesting tension. Notice this isn't just sexual tension, this is existential tension, like, who are you? He will say, I did love you once. To which she says, notice, I know you did. That's not what she says. Look at it again. Look at the language. Start to parse the language and the way Shakespeare's playing games with us. Notice what she says. Indeed, my lord, you made me believe so. Ophelia is starting to figure it out. Sometimes guys lie to girls to get what they want, which is exactly what Laertes told her would happen with Hamlet. To which Hamlet says, you should not have believed me. For virtue cannot so inoculate our old stock, but we should relish of it. I loved you not. Well, and that's at this point that, now, this is just nasty. First he'll say, I didn't give you that stuff. Then he'll say, I did love you. And then he'll say, I never loved you. All within a matter of just, what, 10 lines? To which Ophelia will say, I was the more deceived. Yeah. And that's, of course, one of the major themes of the play, deception. What's fascinating is that Hamlet has railed against hypocrisy, right? And that here he is saying, yeah, I loved you. No, I never loved you. Yeah, I loved you. What is going on here? Hamlet will get worse, not better. He will get meaner, not sweeter. He will get nasty, downright nasty. And as you watch this on stage, especially if you've got a really fine actor playing Hamlet, you get the sense of the rage that is starting to build right about now. Hamlet will start to get worked up. Before we saw him worked up in his soliloquies, now we see him worked up, and he's doing it with his girl, and it's mean. I mean, it's vicious. The way "I loved you not" is usually spit out at her, to which she will say, "I was the more deceived." I've seen this done most brilliantly, where the actor playing Hamlet tries to get off stage, and then you're immediately reminded of the ways that in Act 1, in that tutu solid flesh scene, that he was trying to finish his thoughts and he just couldn't finish. Remember, it's like he kept speaking in those like bursts. He's like walking to try and get off, and then immediately he'll remember something, and he'll turn around and he'll come right back at her, and it's kind of frightening, physically frightening, as she starts to cower, as he starts to come at her. Notice the next one. He will say, "Get thee to a nunnery." Now, what's going on with this "get thee to a nunnery" thing? Well, there's two observations. Conflicting, I should point out. One observation is that what Hamlet is doing is that he knows that Ophelia is pregnant. And because she's pregnant, the only place she's going to be able to go where she can gain any kind of help would be a nunnery. That is to say, you need help that I cannot give. You're immediately going to be completely disassociated by your father and your brother. You need to get to a nunnery. There is another view, though, that says Hamlet is aware that what he is about to do, remember, he now knows that Claudius is guilty, that what Hamlet is about to do is going to potentially jeopardize the life of Ophelia. Therefore, to protect her, he's being heroic, you see. To protect her, he's going to send her away to a nunnery, and the only way he can get her to do that is to be mean to her. In other words, Hamlet is playing a game here. He's not real. Now, you get to decide in your own mind whether Hamlet is just being a jerk guy, or Hamlet's playing a political game of getting her away so that he can protect her. Notice he will say, "Why wouldst thou be a breeder of sinners?" Which, by the way, has led people to interpret, so, she's with child. "I am myself," look what he calls himself, "indifferent honest, and yet I could accuse me of such things as were better my mother not born me." Look what he says about himself. "I'm very proud, revengeful, ambitious, and with more offenses at my back than I have thoughts to put them in, imaginations to give them shape, or time to act them in. What should such fellows as I do, crawling between earth and heaven?" T.S. Eliot loves this idea of being a crab, that maybe some of you will remember last year when you studied the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, that T.S. Eliot will write of Prufrock saying, "I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas." This is where he gets those lines from. T.S. Eliot loved this play. Hamlet says, "I should have just been born a crab." Notice what he says about himself. "I'm not a very good guy. You need to get away from me. You need to stay away from me. I'm indifferent honest." He says, here we go. And ladies, you may want to take notes about what a guy says about himself, and all guys. Notice it's not "I am an errant knave," it's "we." "We are errant knaves all. Believe none of us." Guys are liars. It is the downfall of all women that they believe guys when they look into their eyes and they speak soft words and make promises. They're all lies. Hamlet says, we're all liars. We lie to get what we want, which is, of course, a recapitulation of the earlier lines, both spoken by Laertes and Polonius. "Go thy ways to a nunnery." And then he's almost off stage again, as I've seen this done. It's brilliant. And then he turns around and he comes right back up to her face, and then he asks her, "Where is your father?" Shakespeare does some nasty things to his audience. She goes, "My dad? He's right there, behind the curtains. See, we're doing this thing where we're like trying to fake you out, and my dad is spying on you along with the king. He's right there. Say hi." That would have been called the truth. Hamlet asks her, "Where's your father?" Look what she says. At home." Dang it. The beautiful Ophelia, shall we say it, the fair Ophelia has her chance to prove Hamlet wrong. Beautiful women aren't liars. They always tell the truth. And she lies. Hamlet, we have the sense, knows that she's lying. Look what he says. "Let the doors be shut upon him that he may play the fool nowhere but in his own house. Farewell." And each time these farewells happen, it's like he's trying to leave the stage. Ophelia will fall down on her knees and start praying to God. "Oh, help him, you sweet heavens." In other words, my man's lost his mind. To which Hamlet will come back. And now he starts to get even more nasty. He says, "If thou dost marry, I'll give thee this pledge for thy dowry. Be thou as chaste as ice, as pure as snow, thou shalt not escape calumny. He says, if you decide to marry, I'm going to go all over town and tell everyone I know that you're a no good woman. Ooh. He's going to be totally mean to her. Go. Farewell. Again, he tries to walk away. Or if thou wilt needs marry, marry a fool. For wise men know well enough what monsters you make of them. One or two gentlemen have read this line and said, yeah, that's why I'm never getting married. To a nunnery go, and quickly too. Farewell. Notice he said goodbye to her like already 4 times, and he's trying to leave. She will say out loud, oh, heavenly powers restore him. She's worried about him going nuts. He turns around and comes back at her again, and maybe says the meanest. Look what he says next. I've heard of your paintings too well enough. Nasty. He's going to get into Maybelline. The whole notion of putting on makeup. This is what he means by paintings. I've heard of your paintings too well enough. God hath given you one face, and you make yourselves another. Why, he says, do women need makeup unless they are liars? The only honest women are the women who come to Warland High School wearing no makeup. All other women, liars. He doesn't stop there. He continues. You jig, you amble, and you lisp, and nickname God's creatures and make your wantonness your ignorance. Uh-oh. Do you remember Chaucer? Do you remember the friar? There was a wanton one. A friar, a wanton one, and Mary, remember? The word wanton here means desiring sexual congress, action. That is to say, he says, you pretend like you don't know what's going on. You jig, you amble, you lisp, and nickname God's creatures and make wantonness your ignorance. You pretend like you don't know what's going on. He says you know exactly the game you're playing. As a woman, putting on the makeup and the like to be a temptress to men, you know exactly what you're doing. And then he finishes by saying, I say we'll have no more marriages. Those that are married already, all but one, of course he's referencing his uncle, right? All but one shall live, the rest shall keep as they are. To a nunnery go, and then he leaves. Now we should point out that with the exception of the play within the play, where Hamlet will play nastier word games with Ophelia, he plops down next to her on the floor. She's sitting, he's on the floor. He looks up at her and he says, can I lie in your lap? She's like, no, my lord. I mean my head upon your lap. Aye, my lord. Did you think I meant country matters? Now, there is absolutely no one in the house that doesn't know the game that Hamlet and Ophelia are playing when he asks, did you think I meant country matters? But Ophelia goes, huh? What? 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 What are you saying? What? And it just seems to enrage Hamlet that she will play this kind of game. Now, we can debate, if we had time, back and forth, who's really at fault here. Is it Hamlet for being nasty to Ophelia? Or is it Ophelia for being dishonest with Hamlet? Or does Ophelia have a choice? Is she kind of stuck in the middle? As she's on stage, notice the king, love, he says, love? His affections do not that way tend. In other words, Claudius is bright enough to figure out there's something else going on here other than a kid that's in love with Polonius' daughter, to which Polonius will say, yeah, I know, but I still believe this is probably what's going on. Polonius, the old fool. The king will finish 3:1 by saying, madness in great ones must not unwatched go. That is to say, there's something going on here, we better figure it out. The next little bit here will be for Hamlet then, the presentation of how to act. I wish I could for the actors. I know a number of you have spent your time on stage. These are really important lines. Anyone who acts loves these, and most actors themselves have at some point memorized these lines, where Shakespeare, having Hamlet speak about the right way to perform on stage, he will say things like, don't overdo it, out Herod Herod. In other words, try to make sure that your presentation of your lines are natural, etc., etc. Then Hamlet will find himself with Horatio for a few moments at roughly at 3:2, at roughly line 60 or so. And he will say to Horatio, you are a man. I can't go into this in detail, but I will say it this way. Shakespeare will assume that his intellectual audience knows Republic. What Hamlet says to Horatio is, you're a Platonist, man. you are a real man as Plato defined men. That is to say, your reason balances and controls your emotions and your desires. It almost seems as if Hamlet is saying to Horatio, I wish I could be more like you, Horatio. A more balanced kind of man. It's almost as if Hamlet seems to understand, I'm kind of emotionally dude all over the map. Then he will say something too much of this. It's almost like he's allowing too much emotion to shine through. And then he says to Horatio, okay, look, we got to do this play within the play thing, and we got to kind of watch what's going on. Now to the play within the play. Hamlet will continue to play word games. He will sit next to Ophelia, and Ophelia will say, you're merry, my lord. Wow, you seem awfully happy. Hamlet's like, why shouldn't I be merry? Look at my mom. My dad died 2 hours ago. Look how happy she is. Ophelia will say, it wasn't 2 hours. It was like 2 months ago. So soon. Wow. Well, then a man better build an awfully big mansion to put his name on, because he's going to be quickly forgotten. Hamlet jabbing his mother, if you will. Then we'll have the play within the play. We'll have any number of lines spoken. We shan't spend much time there other than to point out that in the break, Hamlet will call this play not The Murder of Gonzaga, but The Mousetrap. That is to say, designed to catch the rat, right? It would only have been better if he had called it The Rat Trap, right? Because obviously this would have named Claudius as the rat. At the end of it all, Claudius will stand up and say, give me some light. And ironically, the spotlight is now on him. And we now know, Hamlet now knows, that it's for real. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern will come in one last time. Hamlet gets really mad. He takes one of the recorders or a flute, and he asks one of them to play it. And they're like, I don't know how to play that. He's like, play it. And they're like, dude, I don't know how to play that. In most scenes, Hamlet will get violent with them, shove him up against the wall, and say, well, you're trying to play me, right? You're trying to play me. Playing me is like you trying to play that flute. Knock it off. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are puppets, though. They have no choice. They're kind of stuck. They have to do what it is they're doing. Then Hamlet, on his way to, at the end of 3-2, on his way to visit his mother who has called for him, will say, "'Tis now the very witching time of night." And in a very brief soliloquy, we find out that Hamlet is worried that his soul will become like Nero. Of course, in mythic lore, Nero is the one who will burn down half the city of Rome and then blame it on Christians, who he then will crucify by the tens of thousands on the way on the Appian Road. This is Hamlet. He says, I don't want to be like Nero. And yet, ironically, just a few seconds later in 3-3, when he has the chance to kill King Claudius praying, he decides, up sword, no a more horrid hint, you will say. I'm going to kill him, he says, when he's gaming or in bed with my mother, and trip his heels that his soul may go to hell. In other words, sweet revenge. And again, we keep coming back. We're circling around this theme of revenge, and Hamlet obviously is going to work to get revenge that way. Scene 4, I set up for you already as we were listening to it. And I think I told you that it's interesting that American audiences, when Hamlet gets ready to kind of muscle around his mom, and she starts screaming, help, whoa, you're not going to murder me, help, help. Polonius the old fart's trying to get out from behind the curtain. Hamlet will spin. He's got the blade in his hand. He runs through the curtain, and he kills the old man. Let's go to those lines now. When he does that, Polonius will say, help, I'm dead, right? And I'm slain. And the queen will ask at line 25, O me, what hast thou done? Now the audience knows what he's done. What has he done? And why is it that American audiences oftentimes will go, yay, the old fart got his, but we're told Shakespeare's audience collectively went, oh no. What could a bunch of people in the 1600s understand about this moment that American audiences kind of have a tendency to forget?
Him to like get Ophelia? Or?
Oh yeah, how's that one for, try that one on for size. Honey, I'm home. Can we go away and get married? Oh yeah, by the way, just stabbed your old man behind the curtain. Is it going to be a problem with our future relation? Right? I mean, it's in the moment of him killing Polonius, let's just say it out loud, He ain't got no future much with Ophelia. Would you agree with me? Kind of awfully hard to hang out with your girl after you've killed her dad. You got me, right? You know what I'm saying? So, but wait a minute. Shakespeare's audience really didn't care about Ophelia, and they really don't care much about the relationship between Ophelia and Hamlet.
Because he's starting to just kill, like he...
Hamlet for the first time has become a murderer. That's true. That's true. He's murdered. Now he's a murderer. Now he's not just some innocent kid. Good. Keep going. You're missing it. What did Shakespeare's audience understand that American audiences have a tendency to overlook?
Well, we're Americans. We don't understand their kind of politics.
Keep going. It is a politics. You're absolutely right. But a politics of what? Your Cottrell's on the right trail here. She's actually hitting right on the head of it.
He killed the dude who's like in high.
Polonius is definitely second or third to the king. Absolutely right. This is a serious problem.
He'll be punished for this one.
Clearly the murder of Polonius is going to have to be answered for. Keep going. This isn't the answer, though. There is a concrete answer to this. We know it. We know it from historians.
Now everybody thinks that's just his ambition.
Hamlet can look guilty of maybe trying to kill the king to get to the throne. You're right, but that's not it. What hast thou done? The mother asks. Did you see what Hamlet says back to his mom?
I don't know.
Nay, I know not. Is it the king? He says, I don't know what I've done. The audience of Shakespeare's day goes, you're absolutely right, you don't know what you've done. Okay. After I tell you, it's kind of like you're going to go, oh, I should have known that. Shakespeare's written a really nice little play for us. Boy loses his dad to a murder. Ghost of the father comes back and says, get revenge. The father stands up in, Claudius stands up in the play within the play, admits his guilt. So now we know it's time. The audience has been able to pull for Hamlet. In both of the two earlier soliloquies, they've been able to kind of go, dude, I totally get it. You're supposed to get this.
He's just as guilty as the other guy now.
You're getting close. Hamlet stabs who? Polonius has a daughter.
Is it like him and his father? But now
Polonius has a daughter. Her name is?
But he also has a son.
Oh. Polonius has a boy. His name is? We have a tendency to forget him. Shakespeare intentionally likes it this way. Wait a minute. We're back to Cottrell and her observation of politics. What are the politics of Elizabethan England in regards to payback and vengeance? See, remember, we fight duels during Shakespeare's day to the death. This is what American audiences just don't get into it and play. Elizabethan audiences understood it immediately. Shakespeare's writing this nice little play. Everything's going according to plan. Hamlet's going to jack the king, and it's all going to be fine and good in the end. And Shakespeare reaches down into the middle of his own play and goes, and just turns the entire play on its ear. Why? Because now the audience realizes that the very reason they've been pulling for Hamlet this whole play, they have to pull for Laertes now too. Which means Hamlet's got a jack. This can't work out. Shakespeare has just turned his play into a tragedy, and Hamlet doesn't get it. Nay, I know not. What have you done? I don't know. Right, he really doesn't know. Not only is he a murderer, but he's murdered a man who has a son who will be morally obligated for payback. Now the audience can't root just for Hamlet. But in rooting for Laertes, they'll be rooting for the death of Hamlet. And immediately, intuitively, an Elizabethan audience figures this out. It takes an American audience a few more scenes before they go, oh yeah, when Laertes shows up in Act 4. Oh yeah, Polonius had a son. Oh no, oh, he's going to have to die. Crap, I don't like this movie anymore. I remember students going, Mel Gibson dies. Mel Gibson can't die, because he had always made these movies where, like, Jackie Chan, he never dies, Nasty. Shakespeare does something really nasty in this moment. The other nasty thing that he does is he basically makes his mom kind of realize the terrible thing that she's done, but he's clearly kind of losing his mind. He's hallucinating at this point. He can see his father's ghost. His mom can't see the father's ghost. That seems to suggest Hamlet really has lost it. This question of the moment when he finally goes over the edge of his sanity and he starts to pretend no longer madness, but actually to be mad, seems to happen now. In the end, he will in fact even treat Polonius himself and the body of Polonius, the lug, the guts, he says at the very end of this scene. He will say about Polonius that basically, well, look at it with me, indeed this most grave who was in life a foolish, prating knave. In other words, Polonius got what he deserved. Hamlet still doesn't get it at the end of the third act, that there is inevitably now retribution which must come on Hamlet, right? And in the process, of course, this play has to end as what it's called, the tragedy that it must be. One other comment, Hamlet realizes that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern also have to get jacked. To this degree, Hamlet will become a multiple murderer. If he himself isn't going to murder Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, he's going to have to appropriate a way for them to die. And in the process, Hamlet now is not just killing one, but thinking already of plotting a killing more. In other words, note the irony. In To Be or Not to Be, he said, conscience makes cowards of us all. Remember? And Enterprise is a great pitch and moment with this regards. They lose their current, turn awry. They lose that, I'm going to do this. He says that, and then all of a sudden Hamlet starts becoming a doer, not a thinker. And in the moment that he starts to become a doer, he starts doing what? Well, let's itemize it. He treats his girlfriend really, really nasty. That'll be the last time he really speaks to her. And then he kills his girlfriend's dad. And then he kind of starts thinking about killing his old two best friends, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, before he finally gets to killing his uncle. Along the way, there's always the question about his mama as well. He's nasty to her. In other words, once Hamlet starts to become a doer and not a thinker, he's not a very nice guy at all. It's as if he's changed in front of our eyes on stage, and the audience now has difficulty so easily identifying and celebrating him, right? In other words, it's a fair question to ask. By this point, does Hamlet already have the seeds of Macbeth in him? See, if you know that play, you can answer this. Macbeth starts out a really heroic guy, but by the middle of the play, Macbeth is a really wretched guy. I mean, he's ready to kill pretty much anybody to get what he wants. In other words, Hamlet increasingly becomes more Machiavellian. The means justify the ends, right? In other words, I got to do what I got to do. And maybe Hamlet as a kid knew already at the end of Act 1 when he said, "O cursed spite, that ever I was born to set it right. This is the wrong time, totally the wrong time in my life for me to be stuck having to mess with this." And yet, he's going to have to do it. Act 4. Let's make some quick observations about Act 4 as we kind of set up your viewing. Right away, Claudius is going to come in. Immediately, Mama starts defending her son. Oh, Hamlet's crazy, and he accidentally killed the good old man. What are we going to do? I'm so worried. Claudius is a pretty good criminal, though, and he starts to put together right away a plan. The way he's going to do this is pretty brilliant. He's not going to kill Hamlet. He's going to send Hamlet away with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. He's going to write a letter to the King of England. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are going to deliver the letter. Inside the letter, it's going to say, upon opening this letter, immediately kill the young kid Hamlet that's with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. It's a simple plan, right? So that when Rosencrantz and Guildenstern come back, they will say, yeah, everything's taken care of, and the queen will be like, what everything? Well, Hamlet got killed by the king, and of course, no matter how upset Gertrude is, her mama is, the father is able to say, well, I don't know what was going on. That's just terrible. You see, that kind of thing. And that allows for Hamlet to be killed. In the meantime, Hamlet and 4-2. Hamlet and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern have a little game of hide and seek. You can play hide and seek physically, or you can play hide and seek linguistically. Hamlet does both. They want to know where the body of Polonius is stored. Physical hide and seek. Hamlet will say to them, you know, the king, I can't really play games with you until I play games with you. And so he starts playing word games with them, you know. So, for example, he says at line 30 of 4-2, the body is with the king. Polonius. Oh, Polonius is with the king. But the king is not with the body. The king is a thing, my lord, Guildenstern will say, a thing of nothing. And for those of us who, of course, have studied our Lear, we recognize the ways in which Shakespeare loves the word nothing. Nothing comes of nothing is, of course, the famous line from King Lear. But over and over again in these tragedies, the word nothing will come up here. The king is a thing of nothing. In what way is Polonius with the king?
He's going to die.
Yeah, right. In other words, the king's going to die too. In other words, I'm going to jack both of them. Scene 3 of Act 4. The king will say to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, you know, I'm going to take care of this kid. We're getting him out of here. Hamlet will come on stage. The king will ask him, where is Polonius? I'm at 4:3 now, roughly line 20. King will ask, where is Polonius? And Hamlet will say, oh, he's at supper. Now, again, the brilliance is that Hamlet is crazy to the king. But the audience realizes Hamlet's still kind of got some method to his madness, as Polonius will say it. At supper, the king will say, Hamlet says, yeah. Not where he eats, but where he is eaten. A certain convocation of politic worms are eaten at him. The maggots. In other words, oh, he's at supper. The maggots are having he's a prime rib for the maggots. Your worm is your only emperor for diet. And it's in moments like this that Shakespeare shows us just how radical a writer he was for his day. Lines like the ones we're about to exegete are the reason why they shut down his theater, along with the fact that you had men playing women in Romeo and Juliet, etc., etc. Obviously, there's a sexual component. The Puritans did not like the theater. But it's lines like this that are politically very dangerous. Look at what he says. He says, your worm is your only emperor for diet. And then he says something fascinating, politically or philosophically. We fat all creatures, else to fat us. And we fat ourselves for maggots. We drive by the field and we look at the poor cows standing out in the 11 below zero. And we go, oh, the poor cows, they end up like Big Macs. That sucks for them. The cows, of course, look back at us and go, oh, that's so sad. They kill us so they can make Big Macs so that they can die and go into the ground where maggots get to eat them. Who's worse, us or them? This is the point Shakespeare is making. Interesting. Death is the great equalizer. This is the point that's being made. Death is the great democratizer. There is no upper class or lower class. There is no first class or second class, because death makes everybody one class, and that is to say, dead. Keep going. You fat your king and your lean beggar is but variable service, 2 dishes. But to one table, that's the end. The king will go, alas, alas. In other words, Hamlet's lost his mind. King has no idea what he's saying. Look at Hamlet keeps going. It's an interesting word picture. Look at it. A man may fish with the worm that hath ate of a king, and eat of the fish that hath fed of that worm. So you go out to go fishing. You dig in the ground, you find a worm. So you can put him on your hook. How do you know maybe that worm didn't eat the body of a dead king? And yet you're a beggar fishing with a worm, a maggot, that ate of a dead king, so that the beggar can stay alive. In some way, the beggar is eating, by extension, the king. Now who's first class and who's second class? Shakespeare, again, will be writing a play to be performed in the Globe Theater where Queen Elizabeth and the like are sitting up in the upper gallery. And Shakespeare's making the point to first upper class people, you're really not any different from the groundlings. In the end, maggots get everybody. And maggots don't care whether you wore a crown or you only had a fishing pole. Notice the king says, what does thou mean by this? I don't get it. To which Hamlet says, oh, nothing but to show you how a king may go a progress through the guts of a beggar. Again, we could spend lots of time talking about this. He asks again, where is Polonius? Hamlet's response, in heaven. Oh, he's in heaven. Send thither to see him. If your messenger find him not there, seek him in the other place yourself. Whoa. Basically, he's just told him, yeah, why don't you go to hell and you can look for Polonius down there, because that's where he is. Whoa. Finally, Polonius, or the king, will say to Hamlet, you got to go away. Hamlet says, good. King will say, yeah, you wouldn't say good if you knew. Hamlet says, oh, I can see in your cheek. There's a sign there. I know what's going on. And then he steps up to Claudius in one of the great moments of humor. And he steps up to Claudius and he says, farewell, dear mother. And he wants to hug him. Goodbye, mommy. Claudius is like,